property. However, this property is again governed by the Harrisburg Subdivision Authority and Growth Area, their comprehensive plan. The Harrisburg comprehensive plan identifies this property as industrial, future industrial. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff?
Can you just clarify for us, Toby, what role does the city of Harrisburg have in this? As far as, what and who can, if there's drainage issues and any issues like that, I mean, how does that process work?
So again, Lincoln County has jurisdiction over the zoning and the use of the property. So again, it's your decision, or ultimately the County Board of Commissioners' decision to decide if this should be rezoned to commercial. However, any site development, so lot and block layout, grading, drainage, all of that will be governed by the city of Harrisburg. And Lincoln County and Lincoln County staff will have really no say or input into that process.
So who is that person or persons that take care of that, I guess?
So it's much like our process. It'll go through the...
I guess the concern I have is when we get into these issues, if there is some type of drainage issue or any issue, who do the concerned parties go talk to?
City of Harrisburg.
The city office, or, I mean, who?
Yeah, so this process will be much like ours. They'll approve a preliminary plan, which will go through the Planning Commission and the City Council. And then the final development plans will be approved by their city engineering staff and their city staff. And then any future potential issues, of course, would then be addressed by the City of Harrisburg staff, much like if it was in the county.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioners, any additional questions for Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown, is there any precedence for other instances of zoning like this that in the last few years, or can you give us any guidance on what the committee's done in the past?
Well, what's somewhat unique about this application is that the Lincoln County Comprehensive Plan, we've tried to update it a couple times in the past, but it should be updated to reflect the Harrisburg growth area. So this would be considered an urban expansion area. So typically, when we have this type of an application, an urban expansion area, we look solely guidance to the city of Harrisburg with their comprehensive plan. This one's a little unique since we haven't updated the comprehensive plan yet. Again, our comprehensive plan shows this as future agricultural. But in the past, this board has followed the urban expansion area and the city's guidance on their comprehensive plan and followed that as a recommendation.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, seeing none, I will call up the applicant to discuss a proposal. Give us a little detail. Yeah, you can pull it down for talking if it's easier for you.
I'm Matthew Roach. I'm one of the owners of Pride Built Homes, currently reside at 284 Tiger Way. Like the site plan shows, we are working with the Larry Bramstead, to rezone 10 acres. We had brought this before you guys and it had failed last time. We listened to everybody's opposition, their concerns, everybody's voiced opinions on what they didn't like about it. We switched engineers. We did our due diligence asking who the best engineer was to work with. We hired Aaron Norman with Norman Engineering to lead us through the drainage, the site plan, properly getting water off of the site and not redirecting it, but still putting it in the same direction that it currently goes. All 8 acres on the lot are people that we work with. One of those lots will be our personal building, Pride Built Homes building. The other lots will be people that work with us. We're going to set forth an HOA if this is approved to where the site is always maintained kept up. There's going to be things in place where people can't just have ugly storage outside of the building. The city of Harrisburg has given us a list of things that they'd like to see as well, and we will follow all of that to the T. Light poles, sidewalks, the paving of the road. We picked this site also because of its location and with Highway 11 being there where we knew it was industrial, pre-annexation industrial, and we felt like commercial was almost a better fit than industrial, especially for the neighbors because of their opposition last time was traffic, noise, sight. And we felt like what we were gonna put there and our subcontractors were gonna put there, were gonna be an 8 to 5 business. Whereas if an Amazon or a USPS or gas stations or something that truck stop, anything that would be industrial suited, you're gonna have 24 hours, infinitely more traffic. So we feel like what we're doing is almost normal business in that location. I don't know if I answer any questions that you
Yeah,
guys,
no,
or if I just ramble.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. You guys, commissioners, have any questions for Matt?
Do you have any trees or fences or anything along Highway 11 or 272nd?
We definitely could put that in,
Or
that
berm
a
or
certain amount of
something, or-
trees need to be planted.
So what are some of the things you've done differently from the last time it was here?
Water retention is a
to,
huge
you know,
difference.
with the objection of the neighbors?
The site plan is completely different than it was before. The road actually didn't cul-de-sac, it continued through. I know that was a concern for some people with future expansion of acres. So we terminated the road going through. Before, the only water retention was in the northwest corner, and now the water retention is, am I correct, Aaron, that it's the entire blue area?
I'm assuming, is Aaron gonna speak at some point? We
Yeah,
can
he
ask some
wanted
more
to speak
questions?
after
Okay,
us.
all right, very
Yes.
good.
Everything site-related, he's definitely the professional.
I wasn't on the commission the last time you applied, but I did go look at the site today, just where it was posted.
Yep.
It does look like it's quite low in that corner where you're proposing. And I'm sure your engineer's probably gonna address this, but it certainly gets built up from where it is currently.
We are going to build it up. There's material on the site. We worked out a deal with the landowner. It was a win-win. If it didn't pass, he has clay there that he can bring the site up with. If it did pass and we could rezone, we have both clay and gravel on site that we can bring up that entire space. Did you see all those mounds, those rows?
I did, and I anticipate there need to be more than what's there even. Well, I'll just let we'll talk to your engineer. when
Sure.
he's up.
All right, any additional questions for Mr. Roach? No? All right, Aaron, it sounds like
Thank you,
they
guys.
might have a couple questions for you, or whomever else.
If you guys want people in favor, if you want him to talk.
We're not yet. No. Aaron, I think though, we have a couple questions for you, please.
Good evening, Aaron Norman, 3800 West 53rd Street, Sioux Falls. I guess just a little background on kind of the proposed concept grading. Worked with Matt, got some of his input from the last time they were here at the board. Obviously, first of all, the approach off of 272nd, we shoved way to the east to allow for more turning movements, more stacking along 272nd, so they're not coming off Highway 11 and turning the site. That way, people entering and leaving the site, there is room on 272nd Street there. As far as the topography of the site right now, as you mentioned, you went out there, it's kind of irregular. They kind of dumped some dirt in that northwest corner. It generally all wants to flow south and towards the ditch of the Highway 11. With the proposed grading, we are filling it in anywhere from 3 to 5 feet in some areas to get it uniformly graded. With the proposed layout, the street will kind of be the high spot and everything will sheet back towards, the detention pond. It's a long linear swale. I guess when we analyze the site, we have about 66,000 cubic feet of storage in that pond to offset the difference of impervious area to what the natural impervious is today. Keep in mind, there's a 10-acre site. They are dedicating 3/4 of an acre for a 50-footer right-of-way on 272nd, and the pond's about 2 acres. So that's cutting down our usable to about 7 and some odd acres. So, we did submit this to the city of Harrisburg. We got a list of some comments to go through as well as far as meeting their city requirements, which will be reflected in the future plans. Of note, street sections, utility comments, some sidewalk, and a little bit of comments on some of the drainage as far as notating some minimum ground elevations for the lots, et cetera, for future development. So I guess with that, if anybody has any questions from the board?
So the water from the detention moat or pond, does that just sit, or does that go, or you got plans to take that somewhere?
Yeah, it's got a slight gradient grade on it. The site's pretty flat, so to keep as much, obviously, building footprint, but try to maximize our storage. It is draining out in the southwest corner, directed towards the ditch or the right-of-way. Down on Highway 11, there is culverts crossings down there, and even further south, there's culvert crossings.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but just looking at the site, there's a culvert that comes across Highway 11, just to the south of this site, correct? And there's a drainage ditch that runs across the balance of Larry Bramstead's property. And there's water that comes from the west on Shields' property that comes through there. So then you're gonna take all this water and dump into that ditch, is that the plan?
So, looking at it this way, the site naturally drains that way now, would be in grass, tilled, farm A ground. So in our design calculations, we figured out what that runoff rate is today. And so our pond's gonna slow that water down, so that point discharge is no greater than what it is today. So that's the reason behind our pond. So when you say it's more, it's actually the same amount of water, but it's coming through a pipe versus kind of just spreading out.
But, yeah, I don't know that it's more, I mean, that's your profession. I'm just asking, is that where the water's going, is into that?
That's the
that-
lowest spot of the site where it's all draining to
And
the
it's gonna
drain.
go into that existing ditch that's there?
Correct, that
okay.
does today.
How big
And
a
has there been any plan to work with that ditch to better drain things going as it goes east towards Lake Elvin?
I haven't been in contact, I guess maybe the owner or the developer may have contact with the owner, but I haven't reached out to the owner.
Okay.
How big a culvert is that? Are you planning on putting in there?
It's a 30-inch pipe right now.
A 30-inch pipe to take that water off of there? That sounds like an awful big pipe. How deep is that ditch around there?
It is about 2 to 3 feet deep, probably about 3 foot deep to the top of the berm.
3 feet deep.
Water gets about a little over 2.5 feet deep in there.
You said it's about 2 acres?
When you count, we gotta build up a berm, from the property line, we gotta fill up, create the top, come down, and then come up. That footprint takes 2 acres.
This seems like a 30-inch culvert's awful big. For a release, in there, but I'm not an engineer into that stuff, but
Have you done any calculations on this? I mean, I'm with Ron a little bit. That's a big pipe. We'll get a lot of water running into that existing ditch. Have you done any calculations if that'll back up through the culvert on Highway 11 to the property to the west across the road?
Will that back up further west? So what we designed the pipe to.
I mean, once this dumps out into that existing ditch,
Right, we analyze.
have you looked at it and figured, okay, made sure that the water from this detention pond won't go through your culvert into that ditch and then back up across the road?
In theory, it shouldn't, because we evaluated on existing conditions, and we're throttling the release rate out of our new pond during a 5-year event and a 10-year event in a cubic feet per second, so it's a rate of water coming out, and we're not exceeding, you can see in the bottom corner there, our rates, that we're not exceeding those rates during those rainfall events.
So what you're saying is that there'll be no more water coming off of this 10 acres into the existing ditch than there is today?
Right, that's what we're designed to.
Is that ditch designed to drain all the way or to leave water in the ditch after the,
Our ditch is intended to drain dry, but it slows it down over a period of, 24 to 36 hours to get out of there. It's it's a very small gradient on it, and so it'll kind of fill up, build some head pressure on the water, and then come out the pipe.
well, that's 10 acres of ground. And I'm on a township board. We just put a 30-inch culvert in to take about 1,000 acres of ground away. And it should take that, so. Right now, I feel that culvert's way, way too big. 'Cause 10 acres, 30-inch culvert, take a lot of water, 30-inch culvert will. A lot of water.
And the culvert's had a 0.5% gradient too, so it's everything's relatively flat on the bottom of that area, so water uses more of a equalization
with it.
pressure to get out. Versus if it's on a steep slope, yeah, I can understand the point.
Well, even if it's flat. I don't know. I guess well, I'm not an engineer, but I'm just telling you that common sense tells me a 30-inch culvert is way, way too big on that. That's what I'm just saying right now, but I may be wrong, but
So one other question I've got is, so before all this, the way the water drained naturally, did it all end up in the southwest corner of this and then dump into that ditch, or did it kind of come across the whole, the whole southern side of that 10 acres and just slowly go into the existing drainage ditch?
Right.
Or are you gonna end up putting a bunch of water in one spot that used to be spread out over a
Yes.
larger area?
That is the way to control it. I mean, we could put multiple pipes in there and have it discharge in different areas throughout the pond, but we figured it made best scenario to have one point of discharge, one point of, we'll call it runoff water, versus 2, 3, 4 different outlet pipes on that south side. But yes, it did sheet flow naturally across the ground.
But some water did sit in that corner though, didn't it? That was kind of low in there.
Probably did at one time, yeah. Yeah, there's no pipe crossings under 272nd to the north, or,
No.
no, everything was tended to head south.
Okay, Commissioners, any additional questions for Mr. Norman?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'd like to invite anyone up to speak in favor of the project.
My name's Dan Devine. I live at 27094 Deer Hollow Court, Harrisburg. I'm in favor of this project because I feel like it's going to bring a positive impact to the area. It's going to be filled with buildings that are all designed to a specific style, and everything will have to be approved via a homeowners association, to where all the properties are going to have landscaping, be nice buildings, and maintain certain things throughout the period of time that these buildings are here. I feel like we've done a lot to the site plan here to try and appease everybody that the water runoff isn't gonna be a huge issue. And I don't know. I feel like I don't live far from this myself. Our first place that we were looking to do this site was actually right across the street from our own neighborhood that we live in. So I wouldn't be afraid to have it across from me, and I don't know that it matters so much about traffic or anything like that. I don't see a huge amount of people coming in and out of this thing throughout any given day. But that's how I stand on it, I guess.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience that'd like to speak in favor of the application? Okay, seeing none, I will invite anyone to speak in opposition of the application.
My name is Wayne Bramstead. I live at 27195 South Dakota Highway 11. This is the home place that I lived on when we moved from Iowa. And there's always been water in that pond that is just south of this here 10 acres. It doesn't drain. When the water table is up, the water stays there. Anyway, I've got, nothing has changed for us since last August 25th when we had this same project come before the commission. I ask any of you that here present, would you like to have your home across from this project? The individual selling this property does not live in the area. His decision will not affect him in any way. This is primarily farm property all around this area. Highway 11 is a very busy highway. There are 2 housing developments to the east. These people travel 272 2nd Street daily to Highway 11. There is no sewer in the area except for residents. There have been water damage, drainage problems on this property for many years. Where will the water drain? For years, Harrisburg has used my pasture and part of my cropland as their holding pond. A few years ago, they made a holding pond for Harrisburg, but when this gets full, my farm is still used as a holding area, which was the case in 2018 and 2019. Maybe this should be built where a sewer is already established. I strongly oppose this proposal and have 29 signatures from my neighbors that also oppose it. And I'm sure I could probably get a few more if I need to. Before a decision like this is made, the people in the area involved should be the ones accepting it. My brother does not live in the area, so it doesn't affect him. I suggest if Harrisburg is going to be in charge of water drainage 3 miles out, then we need real representation on the city council. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. Please, when making your decision on this project, take into consideration the people who have to live with your decision. I do have a letter from June Shields. She could not be here tonight. With your permission, I'd read that too.
Yes, please.
I am June Shields, and I am unable to be at this meeting tonight. I live at 27225 South Dakota Highway 11, Harrisburg, South Dakota. I am writing in concern of the pride-built homes rezoning on Larry Bramsted's egg land to commercial. Arden and I purchased our farm in December of 1982 and have worked countless hours to make it the farm we have today. Arden passed away in 2019, but I still live on the farm and rent out the land to Galen Johnson, who is a great steward of the land. My main concern of not approving this rezoning is the water drainage that comes from this property to my land. I have two culverts that drain under Highway 11 and into my field. It was mentioned before that the Bramstead field is tiled, but it was put in many years ago and not maintained. The tile in my field has been replaced and maintained. I am concerned that the road and cement will bring more drainage to my land. I know that when was a hearing last July that you are as, I know that when there is a hearing last July that you are, as board said, the water issues were not your concern. But it should be, you are to represent the people of Lincoln County. You told us to go to the city of Harrisburg where we have no say or vote on these regulations. Another concern I have is what the commercial zoning will do to my value of my land. I understand that the time is changing and owners of the farmland have very little say in our area, but you sure want our taxes paid each year. I am just wondering if Larry Bramstead has his taxes paid in full on the land in question, as he was behind when we met with the Lincoln County Commissioners. The traffic on Highway 11 has increased a great deal over the years, and by adding commercial lots will only add to traffic. The driveway that is gaining access to this land is very close to Highway 11, and an accident is just waiting to happen. For the reason I have mentioned in this letter and the others that have gotten up to give their opinion, I hope you will consider not to give approval of this Bramstead Pride-Built Homes. The Shield Farm is very important to my family and want to keep it in its very best we can. I have a list of 28 names that are neighbors of mine that do not want this proposal to pass.
Thank you for your time, Wayne.
Excuse me, Wayne, are some of them people here tonight, or? I mean, you don't have to point anybody out, but
One is,
one is, okay. Okay, thank you.
and I've got the list I've got a copy if you would like it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else would like to speak against the application? Thank you.
I'm sorry, but I walked forward, but you happen to recognize the people who are against it. I'm Larry Bramstead, I am for it. I don't know if you allow me to speak because you're ready.
Will you step up to the microphone, Larry?
My name is Larry Bramstead, and of course I am for this proposal. As far as Arden Shields, June Shields land, the land does drain onto our property or my property. So as far as it backing up onto hers, it never has. The Pride-Built Homes are building it up a little bit. It was a bit of a low spot because the state of South Dakota took the land off to build Highway 11. They did not replace the topsoil, which we've always fought the clay for it to retain water for some time. With this proposal, it will actually help the drainage because we're putting soil back on that was clay. So it's really a major improvement. The tile system, the Highway 220 or 272 or gravel road, everything north used to drain through our field. But the state changed it and put it to the creek, that's to the north. That's why there's no more culvert there. There was a 20-inch culvert throughout the years until they changed Highway 11. Now, if there's any questions you guys would like to ask me, I'd be more than willing to answer.
Thank you, Larry.
Larry, would you be, would you be opposed to working with your neighbors on that drainage ditch and figuring out what the
No
improvement,
problem one bit.
what the improvement would need to happen so that everybody would be
Would
satisfied
cooperate
with the
it,
way the
yes.
drainage is?
Absolutely.
have you guys worked with them yet, or?
I've only talked through Matt Roach. I
Okay.
haven't really contacted neighbors, and I really don't know for sure who the neighbors are yet. Of course, my brother Wayne gave you the list, I believe, tonight, and that would give me a chance to have some idea who they are, so that we can deal with them and work with it.
Thank you, Larry. All right, in opposition of the application?
My name is Norm Smink. I live at 47774 273rd Street, which is the oil road that goes into Harrisburg, south of this proposed development. I like the changes that have been made. It looks good. My biggest still concern is the water issue. We are in a very flat area, and it ponds very easily. There's no direct runoff unless you go quite a ways south to get where it'll go eventually into Lake Ellen. That would be quite a cost for either the current landowners next to this property or to the developer, because it's going to pond just south of this proposed zoning change, and it ponds on both sides of Highway 11. And even though there's culverts going under Highway 11, there's nowhere for it to go except through tile lines or stay in a pond. So I'm opposed to this until we see a better plan for water runoff. Thank you.
Norm, a quick question. So we've talked about the tile on this property. Does that tile come across to yours then, to the south?
It goes south, southeast. It goes across the home place where I grew up on, where my brother still farms, and his mother. We replaced some of that last year at a very large cost because so much water drains, and the only way it drains is through tile lines.
So,
I don't know, we've improved on our side. Whatever has been done on the northwest quarter, I'm not sure. So
so that tile line runs all the way up to this, I'll call it a slough or a depression, right on the edge of Highway 11 there, to the south of this proposed site? Is that
ours,
kind of where it starts?
ours runs up to the quarter section line.
Okay. I think I'll have Larry come back up and clarify where his tile runs then.
It is a 12-inch system, and they have been doing improvements on it this spring. So it does run clear again. That doesn't mean that we can't have some problems in the future, but a 1-foot tile system does carry a lot of water.
But it does, is the start of the tile in this wet spot south of the proposed?
No, it does not. It goes all the way up to where my son's house is. That's the beginning of that line. It curves around, and I can't give an exact where it's at because it was never mapped in 36 when it was put in. But I can give you a very close idea to about where it's at.
So if you've been doing improvements, though, you must know where it's at.
Only with the low spots that wasn't draining. We had some collapsing with all the rain that we've had the last few years, and we've just replaced it this early spring, late winter, how you want to call it.
So it's a clay tile system,
Yes.
basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any more questions?
But you don't know for sure, Larry, if it comes all the way up into this wet spot that we're gonna drain the southwest corner into?
Yes, it does.
It does, it goes
It
into
most
that?
certainly does. I can draw a map of it and be very close to it if you would like to see one.
No, that's fine, that answers my question.
Thank you, Larry. All right, is there anyone else in the audience like to speak in opposition of the application?
My name is Brian Bramstead, and I live at 47816 275th Street. And this is a fairly, I don't live near the proposed project, but I am the son of Wayne and Alice. And for years, I grew up on a place, and there's always been water in that corner from the time that I can remember. I just think you're opening up, I know the city of Harrisburg means well, but they're not gonna be able to control it either, honestly, unless they come up with a little better plan than this. I just think that there's just too much runoff, and we were all here when we had 10 inches of rain years ago. It just went everywhere, and it never did dry out that year. And the following year, it never did, obviously, also. I'm opposed to the water runoff, and there's no sewer, there's really no plan to get the water away in a legitimate way that would affect or would help everybody's involved. And I believe that communities should come first. If there's a lot of people that don't want the project, then really what good is it? There's only two parties that are gonna benefit from it, the buyer and the seller. It's just gonna affect a lot more things, and really, the county doesn't wanna deal with water issues, obviously, either. And if the city doesn't take care of it, who is that gonna fall on to? Somebody's gonna be hearing about it, and it's probably likely gonna be the county or the township or both. And with the increased traffic on that road, I'm not sure, is the township gonna do more to upgrade the road system on a gravel road? I work on a road that they haven't maintained, and the city of Canton takes care of it, and it's just terrible. That's 480th Street. If you ever wanna go on a rough road, that one's very rough, and it hasn't been graded all year. First time today I seen a grader on it, and he didn't even have the blade down, so. I'm just thinking, the county's got a lot of things, a lot of other issues, so I just think you're opening up to a lot of problems, and I oppose this strongly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, is there anyone else that would speak in opposition to the application? Okay, seeing none.
I could explain that map a little bit, water where it runs now.
Would that help any commissioners?
Yeah, that'd be all right if you wouldn't mind, Norm.
As long as they both agree.
This is my home place.
Norm,
I live over here
come
now.
up there.
Excuse me, can you,
No, Norm, can you go to the microphone a minute or be hard to show us?
yeah,
Yeah.
We need to hear you though, Norm, if you can go up to the mic and just
we're,
over there.
Norm, we're being recorded for other people, so they need to hear too in the public.
Is there a clicker up there? They used to have a red clicker up there.
The blue outline of that quarter, that's the quarter. Let me get a stop. No. The purple line where Highway 11 is, that goes left to right, that's the division between the northwest quarter and the southwest quarter. Just to the bottom of that purple line on the right of Highway 11 is my home place, where I grew up. If you go straight east or to the right of that building site, you'll see kind of an L-shaped water line or creek. We put in new tile lines from the beginning of that L shape all the way to the northeast corner of the home place. And only dark areas you see on that map are areas that ponds water and no crop grows most years. And so you can see just south or to the bottom of the proposed 10 acres, there's a big black area. That's been underwater except for this year. And whether that's tiled out, that would eventually go through our farm, if it is. Maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't.
Because if there is tile through there, or if there will be tile through there, it'll have to get hooked up to yours and go across yours.
Yes,
Okay.
That's what I would suppose. And the problem is, when you start overloading tile lines, you start having breakage, blowouts, and problems for landowners for they're down the water line.
Thank you, Norm. All right. Unless there's no else in opposition, I think I'll close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask for a motion from the commission. We get the first and second, then we can have our discussion. A lot of thinking going on. All right, in order to start the discussion, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Commissioners, discussion or thoughts?
Yeah, so, just a few things that I've picked up is, I like it that you guys took some consideration from the denial and, tried to change some things, and I think you changed some things for the site. I don't know that you took in the whole entire area into your consideration. And I guess going forward, that's what I would like to see. I have a problem with, and I've had a problem with this, the fact that the city of Harrisburg, is ultimately in charge of the drainage in these areas, and I'm very sensitive to ag drainage, being an ag person, and I know how complex it is and how sensitive it can be, and I'm fairly certain that the city of Harrisburg is not the local drainage expert. And I don't think that in these issues, I don't think that there's somebody in the city of Harrisburg that can come out and solve it. Quite frankly, the only people that I think can solve it are the neighbors themselves, and the disappointing thing to me is it doesn't sound like anybody's talked to the neighbors and tried to come up with a solution on how to make this better, other than we're just gonna, basically you haven't changed anything. You've done the calculations. You're not improving the water flow out of there. We don't really know how that's gonna look, but there's an underlying issue there, or a previous issue, that looks to me like it needs to be solved before this goes ahead. And then the probably the other thing that bothers me about it a little bit is it doesn't really seem consistent with the neighborhood as it is today. And I can, I'm very familiar with that area. I've been up in there a lot. And this, to me, would be the only facility or development of this kind anywhere within many, many, many miles. So those are I guess my two thoughts on it. I think that if it was to go forward, I think there has to be some consideration to the drainage and to the other neighbors. And then, secondly, I think the consistency of the neighborhood, should be considered as well, so.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Other commissioners?
Mr. Roach, I think you have a good idea here. And I do think you guys have put forth some, and obviously, I think for us to question the engineering on it is a little, Monday morning quarterbacking if they say the water's is what it is, or the culverts. I mean, I'm sure that's, my bigger issue with the project would be the fact that, it just seems like something that there's probably a spot in Lincoln County that already exists that could maybe better serve, what you're proposing with the sewers, the sidewalks. I just, with the other local opposition, I think it's probably something that maybe could be moved elsewhere.
Thank you. Other commissioners?
I really don't like the way the 30-inch tile coming off of that piece of ground is draining down there. It may be okay on paper, but I live over by the T exit, and I live on a quarter right now that engineers have told us for 40 years, farm the whole thing, and right now there's about 40 acres you can never farm. You can't even farm it this year because we got water coming out of Sioux Falls and out of T. And if I'm sitting up here, I wasn't here last summer when they did this, but if we've got 20 to 25 people or whatever against this, and we've only got a handful for it, that basically tells me it's the wrong spot at the wrong time in this county. That's what it's telling me. They probably should get together with all the neighbors, have a big meeting and sit down and talk about it. And if it's still that way, I think it's kind of it's tough not building something when everybody around you doesn't like it. I mean, it's just starting on a bad foot right away. And that's just the way I look at it. So.
Thank you. Mr. Pappas, do you have any comments?
No, I think a lot of truths have been shared with us. It just, to me, looks like a spot zoning situation that is not the right spot for this at this time, so.
And I agree also. Quality company, you guys do good work, and I'm sure it'll be a well-constructed and well-designed place, but I do agree it's not the right spot. With that, we'll take roll. Let's try to please say yes or no. Sometimes yay and nay sound quite a lot.
Repeat what the motion is on that.
The motion is to approve.
To approve.
Yep.
Okay.
Commissioner Albers,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Scott,
No.
Commissioner Poppins,
No.
Commissioner Jongling.
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, the next agenda item?
This next item is a conditional use permit that was submitted by the property owner, Justin Kiken. Mr. Kiken is requesting a conditional use permit for an oversized accessory building on the property. I'll throw this to this part. So the property was issued a conditional use permit in 2019. Since that time, for an oversized accessory building, and since that time, the building was constructed. The applicant is now requesting an additional 100 square feet to be added to the building. Because at the time the conditional use permit was restricted to that size, a new application was required, and so that was submitted. As part of the staff analysis and the staff report, staff has identified that there is really no negative consequences to this proposed application, and does feel that it is appropriate to issue the conditional use permit. Staff, again, is recommending approval of the application with the findings and the conditions that were in the staff report. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Hearing none. All right, I will ask the applicant to come forward and describe their proposal.
Justin Quaken, 46790 271st Street. And as you can see from the site plan that he had up there, we're building a new house in the back. And so now with the new house, we'll have septic and we're adding a bathroom to the shop, mostly to appease the wife. So don't have to go into the house anymore. So there's the bathroom.
Do you really want that on the record?
Yep. She needs to know. So that's what we're adding, 10 by 10, little breezeway bathroom off the shop. So.
Will you said a bathroom in the shop, will that tie into your existing
Yeah,
septic?
It's we're putting up a new house and new septic, so it'll tie with the house and the new septic.
Okay.
So, yep, so it'll all be sized for the extra bathroom.
All right, yeah, I remember your application here a couple years ago, or 19 apparently.
Yeah.
You're a contractor, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, if there's no questions, thank you.
Thanks.
At this time, I'll ask anybody that's in favor of the application to come forward and speak. Okay, seeing none, I will ask anybody in opposition of the application to come forward. Okay, seeing none, I will ask the commission to give a recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to accept or to approve the conditional use permit.
I'll second Scott.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioners, do you have any discussion? Seeing none. Joan, can we do roll call, please?
And just to clarify the motion, that was with the conditions?
Yes.
Commissioner Albers?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Good luck. Good luck with the man shed. All right, Mr. Brown.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this next item is a conditional use permit application that was submitted by the property owner, Larry Healy. This is a request for a conditional use permit for an accessory building to exceed 1,500 square feet. The applicant is requesting 2,400 square feet. So the applicant has identified on the property that the accessory building would be to the south of the property along the southern kind of what we'll call the western property line or eastern property line, directly in the back of the house. Per the staff analysis, staff has identified other accessory buildings in this particular area that have or do exceed the 1,500 square feet requirement. So staff does feel that this will fit within the neighborhood and within the property. It will meet all necessary minimum standard setbacks for the property. So staff does recommend approval of the application, subject to the findings and conditions of the staff report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'd like to invite the applicant to come forward and give a little description of your addition.
My name is Larry Healy, and my wife Christy, we live at 47857 Lake Alvin Place. Looking to build a 40 by 60 shed. And we've been up there for over 25 years. I'm probably the only gentleman that's been up there long enough to realize we even have covenants up there. Our covenants say the shed needs to meet the house criteria and that stuff. So the shed will be colored, the doors will match the doors on our house. We're actually sliding it over, I think it's a 5 feet off the easement. We're sliding it over 8 feet to give Dustin a little more room crossed from that. We decided to put it behind our house. That way, when you're driving up the hill, you're not gonna see a big shed. It's gonna kind of be covered in the back a little bit. Other than that, just using it for storage. Know pretty much every neighbor that is up there, and I personally talked to them, asked them about it, seen if they had any qualms about it. None of them did. Some people texted me tonight saying good luck, but want to be a good neighbor. Therefore, I did due diligent to meet with them to make sure everything is okay, and I never got any complaints from anybody, so. Is there any questions or anything that I can?
Thank you, Larry. Commissioners, any questions for Larry?
Are you coming around the house to get into your, on this?
We are. You're actually, we're gonna come around the corner of the house, where we drive into the, garage. It'll just come right next to the garage on the south side, and, that'll be actually, from the shed, it comes out 12 feet of cement, and the rest is gonna be a, crushed asphalt, to drive, so that we're able to back in right next to the house.
What's that purple line? Is that the?
That is off. Actually, that's the way they have the, that's how they have the lot line drawn up, which the lot line actually moves over on both ends of it. Them purple lines, every one of those purple lines are off.
Okay. Well, I'm just.
Actually, there's a fence that goes to the back. It looks like it goes into that pasture farther. It actually comes back, and my lot line is the fence line where you can see in the back. The purple line should be over towards Dustin's driveway a little bit. You'll see at the end of my driveway is an electrical pole.
Yeah,
We go right dead down the center of that.
okay.
And it comes out when Dustin built his corner of his shed in his house, he got a little too close to my lot line, but it got approved through there. And then the blue line that comes in the front of my place, actually, that needs to be moved over closer to the road. I should have brought a covenants that I have, but the lot line should be closer north to the road there, so that whole purple line, which supposedly is my lot line, is not my lot line.
Okay.
But correct, well, the driveway will come south of the house and just curl around there.
Okay.
And like I say, there'll be a road going into that.
Yeah, sometimes, Larry, when they take the super satellite and just lay it on top of lines, they don't always line up perfectly, so.
Right, yeah, so we measured for, there's a mark on the corner post in the northwest corner, and we came across there and we can cover our lot lines out, but,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Thank you guys,
Larry,
appreciate what
I
you do.
appreciate you talking to your neighbors too. That was my big question, so thank you. All right, at this time, I'd ask anyone to come and speaks in favor of the application. Okay, seeing none, I will ask anyone to speak in opposition of the application. All right, with that, I'll close the floor to a public, and then I'll ask a motion from the commissioners.
I'll make a motion to approve with the findings and conditions.
I'll second it, Elbers.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Albers,
Yes?
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Congratulations, Larry, thank you. Mr. Brown, next item, please.
This next item is an application by Brian Gady for a conditional use permit for warehousing, specifically outdoor storage on the property. This is this shows the zoning. This property was recently rezoned from A1 to commercial, I believe within the last year. This was a site plan that was submitted with the application. Again, the proposal is for outdoor storage. The house that's on the property, that's not part of this zoning and not part of the concept. But the concept would be outdoor storage. The proposal is, since this is within the floodplain, to remove 5 inches of topsoil on the property, specifically where the storage would be on the property. And then that will be replaced with an aggregate material. The reason for the aggregate material is the Lincoln County zoning ordinance requires that if there's going to be any parking or storage or driveway access, that has to be off of a hard surface, or if it's not off a hard surface, it has to have an aggregate that's at least 4 inches in depth. So that does meet that requirement. So as part of the staff analysis, staff does feel that this application as properly conditioned will meet the requirements or the standards of the area. And with that, staff does recommend approval with the findings and then with the conditions as shown in the staff report. With that, we'd have to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will ask the applicant to come forward and just describe their application.
Good evening, I'm Brian Gady. I live at 7409 West 15th Street in Sioux Falls. And this is our proposal for some outdoor storage campers. Can we get the plan up or whatever? So we're gonna grade where all the campers sit, take out the dirt that's needed, bring in some 3/4 to 1.5 inch crushed granite, and get the site all graded to the original grade that it is right now. And then we're gonna phase in fencing over the next year or so. We're gonna start with the fence on the north and the grading this year. We'd like to do a little phased approach and see if we can work towards the whole property being fenced eventually, but yeah, I'm up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gady. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
So in where it says tract 1, is that your residence or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gady. Commissioners, you good? Mm-hmm. Okay. I would like to ask anybody in support of the application to come forward and speak. Seeing none, I will ask anybody in opposition to come forward and speak. Okay, seeing none, I will close the floor to public comment and I'll ask for a motion from the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the conditional use permit with the findings and conditions.
Thank you.
I'll second, Scott.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Commissioners, do we have any discussion? Looks like we're good. We do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Albers,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Good luck, Mr. Gady. All right. right, Mr. Brown, you're up.
Okay.
Thank you.
This next application is a conditional use permit application by East River Electric. East River Electric is proposing to build an electrical substation on the subject property. As you can see, this is currently zoned A1 agricultural, is just to the south of Dakota Plains East Dairy, as well as close to the site that was just approved last month for the methane conversion project. That would be on this property right here. So this was a site plan that was submitted with the application. Again, this would be in the northwest corner of that intersection. Again, it'd be an electrical substation and then accompanying accompanying types of equipment that are associated with that or associated equipment with that. And so staff has submitted a staff report for your review. Staff has identified that this is proposed use as conditioned, should not have any potential increases or disturbances to the surrounding property. And with that, staff does recommend approval as with findings and conditions in the staff report. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, do you have any question for staff?
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Have you had any opposition on this?
I think we've had a couple of calls just in questioning kind of what it was, but once we told them what it was, I think one of the people that I talked to at least was associated with another methane producer and just asking about the project, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brown, is this used more so to handle the electricity being produced by the methane project or to handle electricity coming inbound from East River for the dairy in the neighborhood?
I think it's more so to provide electricity for what's going on in growth and development in that area. As far
Thank
as
you.
what I think we've been told as staff.
Okay. Commissioners, everyone satisfied? All right, with that, I'd like to ask the applicant to come forward and speak on their proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Paul Lecce with East River Electric, working out of our headquarters at 211 South Hearth Avenue, Madison, South Dakota. The new proposed substation is needed by our East River member system, Southeastern Electric, to serve the expanding dairy loads that you see on the map and a potential digester around Viborg, South Dakota, along with other rural load growth in Lincoln and Turner counties. The new substation would allow for a better source to segment their distribution system and stronger ties for load transfers during system outages. In order to meet the growth, improve voltage issues, and allow for better load transfers, East River is proposing to build the Delaware substation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Commissioners, do you have any questions? I'm just curious, what size transformer we put in there?
I have it. It is a 7,500 kVA.
Okay,
Be a 69 kV to 1245 kV transformer.
okay. I got a lot of questions, but none pertains to this, so,
Okay. Well, call me anytime.
sure.
There's
Thank
no
you.
other questions for me?
Thank
The
you.
normal sources of power, otherwise, I mean, you're sourcing electricity the same
Correct.
ways, I mean.
Yep, this will be fed from the Beersford-Wappa substation on our Viborg tap line that runs about 2.5 miles south. So we'll be building a radial tap up to the substation to power it off our normal feed from Western Area Power Administration.
So this really doesn't have anything to do with the methane digester project that we approved last month?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
This is solely for distributing electricity to the end users and supporting our member system for their needs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I will ask anyone that's, to speak in support of the application. Okay. Is there anyone in opposition of the application?
Yeah, my name's Mark Redlin. I live at 29143 468th Avenue. I live just south of there, maybe not quite a half mile. Now, these lines are going to come right past my home, right out in my front yard. I live approximately 125 feet from the road. Stray voltage is what we're worried about. And in the substation on the corner, if the dairy's using it mostly, why don't they build it up towards the dairy? And I don't think it should come down our road. I could have got probably a few more neighbors involved, but when they posted it down in the ditch. Nobody could see it. I actually moved it up on the road, but I don't know if anyone saw it. The aesthetics, it'd be hard to sell a place with high voltage lines right in your front yard. So I'm opposed to it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name is Christy Meltzer. I live just about a half a mile south of Mark. And I built a new house there about 5 years ago and didn't know the dairy was being built there. I didn't even know this methane thing was approved last month. There was nothing posted on the road for us to know that was going on, that it's getting bigger and bigger. I built this huge house there and plans of spending the rest of my life there, and now they're gonna put, we don't know what's gonna get put in front of our house or buried in front of our home. And we're close to the road too. Our neighbors across the road from us, they came and talked to us tonight, but they couldn't come. They had other things that they had to, engagements they had to be to. But I would just, you talked earlier about about being a good neighbor and discussing things with people in your neighborhood, to let them know if that's something they would approve. But I feel like this isn't something that we would approve, that we would want. That's not why we moved there. So I just wanted to let you know how I feel about it. I don't want it to decrease my property value. So I appreciate your listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Good evening. My name is Jill Nelson. I live at 29143 468th Avenue. I am also very strongly opposed to the new power station. We have not been informed in anything that's been happening in our area. Like Mark stated, the sign was buried in the ditch. We haven't been notified of anything over the last couple of years. This is our first opportunity to attend a meeting, and very concerned about the property value in the area and the quality of life. Seen a significant deterioration in the quality of life over the last couple of years. I would have expected that our neighbors in the area would come and talk to us. It would have been great to have some type of notification as to what was happening. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you tonight, and I would ask you, each and every one of you, to put yourself in my shoes as a property owner, spending 20 years planting a great garden, beautiful landscaping, building a house, worked very, very hard my entire life to be able to afford a great property, thought I would spend the rest of my life there. And I do not want high-line towers right out in front of my house. I don't want the traffic there. I don't want the construction. I don't want the voltage running near my house. And I would really ask each of you to stop and consider and put yourself in our shoes. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Joe Schumacher, and I live just south of the Redlands. My question is, the power lines, if they come down our road, there's lots of people living, not just where we live, but south, where they could go over a mile, and there's very little people living on that road. You know, so if they have to do it, they could go around the section where there's less or nobody living instead of coming right down our road. So, thank you.
Excuse me, how many people live down that road?
Our road,
Yeah. Like four?
there's 4 families right in that 1 mile. Then you go a quarter mile farther and Larry Olson lives there. Another quarter mile farther, John Schubeck, or it's Paul Schubeck, Mrs. Schubeck lives there. You go a little farther, there's people all the way up and down that road. Where if you go over a mile, even if they came up, it would be a mile and a quarter south of where we live. That's a dirt road. There's nobody on that road. And then they could come north and there's 1 family on that road. So there's ways they could do it and not have as much families affected if they wanted to. Any other? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. So I know, let me read this. Toby, this is just, oh, it is a conditional use permit. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so the site plan that we received, it doesn't show any transmission lines, it just shows the electrical substation. So I guess if you want to ask the applicant representative to discuss maybe more about where the overhead lines,
Yes.
or
Yep.
if there is any transmission lines for it, so.
Paul, could you step to the podium and address some of the concerns of the neighbors?
Of course. So the siting for the transmission lines that feed the substation is a direct path straight from the substation south to our existing lines. That is not set in stone. That is the most direct line, the most cost-effective way for us to get to from our existing voltage to where the voltage is needed today. We would be open to discussions if there is public opposition to coming up that road. Building extra miles of line does add a lot of cost. It adds a lot of, expense that needs to be transmitted onto our member. But as I said, this alignment is not set in stone. We're here today to get the substation placed. Once that happens, through the easement acquisition process, there will be outreach to the public. During that course of projects, we have changed alignments in the past when they think that there's a better way to do it. If there's a way to build this line with an extra mile that doesn't impact 6 families and impacts 0 families, then we would love to do that. What we found in the past is the problems we run into is that once you take that concept, move it a mile over, then you're impacting another set of landowners that also don't want a transmission line running across their property. So at this time, I can't commit to a final alignment, but I think that we would be open to discussions about alternates. The line that is going to be feeding the substation does run east and west along the quarter line, so it is possible to make a lateral move on that. And if we can come in and if we can mitigate an entire community's concerns by building an extra mile of power line, I'd be willing to bet that we would do that.
Currently, you're coming right up the ditch or right along the road, is that what you're thinking?
Correct.
Okay. Any thought to going through the middle of the section?
Our transmission group's preference is to not do that. We're currently moving several of our alignments that were built in the 50s that go across the quarter lines out to the road. This would be 2.5 mile radial tap. I would say they would be opposed to that for maintenance purposes, but it's definitely a discussion I can have with them.
So this is a radial feed to the substation?
Correct. This is currently, as planned, a 2.5 mile radial.
What's that mean, Jerry?
So usually you feed substations in a loop, so it comes in from one way and another way. Ice takes down all this one, you still have another way to feed the substation. With what Paul's saying, there's just one line. If ice comes, it's just out till we get some of our good linemen out there and fix it up.
And, Jerry, may You service that area fully?
Yes.
All the customers?
Yes, we do. We service our member, Southeastern Electric, who is our distribution cooperative member. So they serve the end user. We serve the distribution cooperative as their transmission cooperative.
So what's the process look like if this was to get approved in the go forward plan, to redirect the lines? How would that look? How would these residents go about that?
Well, the first process after approval of the substation is I would go back to our management staff and I would explain the concerns of these landowners and ask if there was a way we could find another route for the line to get it into the substation effectively.
Would you guys be opposed to having a plan of where the line's gonna go before this gets approved and be part of the conditions?
If that's what the commission requests, then that's what we would do.
I guess I've just been around this, being on the, by T and having growth and new lines. This doesn't shock me. Toby, we've got homes that are building under the WAPA line currently. This just doesn't shock me. It's definitely a change, but with that change over time, it becomes a normality. We're trying to provide, or you're trying to provide electrical services, reliable service, and this is part of the necessity of doing so. Is that not correct?
That is correct, and it is for the entire community, not just for industry.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then my question is,
Joe, could you just repeat your name one more time?
I'm Joe Schumacher. My question then is, in the past, they've built power lines through the middle of the section. I think the problem or the concerns, nobody lives in the middle of a section. You could solve a lot of problems and a lot of arguments, heartache, whatever you want to call it. Put the line through the middle of the section. We own ground there. I know other guys that own ground there. Put it out there where nobody can be affected by the stray voltage and the problems that we see that could be a problem. So, my 2 cents.
Thank you, Joe. All right, unless there's any new concerns, I'll close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask for a motion from the commission.
I'll offer a motion to approve.
I'll second Scott.
With the conditions?
With the conditions and findings.
Okay, with that, I'll ask, any discussion from the commission?
I guess I'd like to see a way if they could move that line. Or if they would. If we've got 4 neighbors here and if they've got another 3 or 4, that's quite a few in a couple mile area that don't want that to go up there. And I do live around T too, and them lines, they're a bad deal, but you do get used to them. I mean, it's good and bad. It's part of growth. I know that's hard for you here to say, but I guess if we've got 6 or 7 people in a mile and a half to, I think the electric company should try to at least look at a different route to go there. Just, I would like to see that. See what it would take to go there.
I don't disagree. There's a lot of situations where I would have liked to have had things moved around. Unfortunately, the guidance on the transmission lines are outside of our control. I think that's the diligence of the being a good neighbor aspect of our cooperatives, and for them to go out and try to make that be the minimum impact as possible, so.
I agree with that. If East River or Southeastern can maybe do a community hall or invite everybody in to have a discussion, I think that'd go a long ways. Commissioners, any more discussion? Okay, with that, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Albers,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Mr. Brown?
This next item is an application by John Schutte for a conditional use permit for a private outdoor recreation facility. As you can see, this is Mr. Schutte's property is zoned A1 agricultural and RC rec conservation. The specific RC rec conservation area would be where the proposed private outdoor recreation facility would be located. This was the site plan that was submitted with the application. Mr. Schutte intends to have a pumpkin patch, a sunflower field, and then an area where he would have festivals on the property. So staff has reviewed the application. We have been in contact with the applicant as well subsequent to the submittal of the application. And staff does feel that as properly conditioned, we do recommend approval of the conditional use permit, subject to the findings and conditions that are listed in the staff report. We have had some discussions with the applicant. There is an easement that runs to the property owner, or to his property, that runs across his neighbor to the south. That's a civil matter between those two parties, but we did feel that there was some discussion with it, so staff did recommend a condition that we would ensure that there's compliance with that proposed easement across the property as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer your questions that you have for staff.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Toby, do you feel that the designation with private recreational facility is the proper designation?
So there is no definition in the zoning ordinance for private outdoor recreation facility. Just going off of the past, how the board has approved these types of what I'll call farm operations. And so this does bring a level of commercial into the agricultural area. But it has how we've treated previous applications for this type of use.
And then, item 5, festivals are limited to 4 times a year. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
So the applicant did identify in the application that they would have festivals, and so staff felt that these should be restricted. And so limited to, in accordance with kind of what was in the application, would be those be limited to 4 times a year.
But then the rest of the year, they would be open for business, correct? It just wouldn't be considered a festival?
They would be open for the pumpkin patch and for the sunflower field, yes.
Okay.
But what I would call festivals, what they referenced in the application. There is, though, that just reminded me, so I did have a conversation with the township. And so I would suggest that we add another condition to this list. And that is that road haul agreement and/or maintenance agreement from Canton Township be obtained. And so the township does, the access to this is off of the county highway, but there's a township road that connects, and the township is concerned that this would be the primary access to that state road, or the county road to get into this property. So they are recommending, and I think staff is supportive of that, just to ensure there's any concerns.
So you're suggesting, number 9, that this business, if passed, will enter a roadship agreement with the county?
With Canton Township.
With Canton Township.
Canton
Okay.
Township. The county is not requesting any agreement for road access.
Okay, any additional questions of staff?
I do, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mr. Poppins?
Again, referring back to number 5, festivals, A, what's the definition exactly of a festival? And then B, 4 times a year, if one event happens to run April, May, June, we could pretty much run the whole year. We don't have that defined. I guess I'm just not satisfied with that number 5 at all.
So I think, again, festival, that was what was promoted in the application materials, but I think to clarify it, per your request, would just be limited to 4 times a year in a weekend. So we would restrict it to a weekend.
One weekend represents a festival, so 4 weekends.
Correct.
Okay.
So that would need to be added, the definition.
Yeah, clarified, yeah. Yeah, let's say festivals are limited to 4 weekends a year, so take out times and substitute weekends. And then, a last one that I would add as well too, and I apologize for that, but, so I would add a 10th condition. I've talked to the neighbor quite a bit, and we did have some correspondence from their legal counsel, which we've included up on your desk. But a 10th condition would be to review this conditional use permit 1 year from the date of approval. And that would determine, that would give us a chance to kind of see where we're at with the, a little concern to staff that it kind of sounds like depends on the success of the overall operation. So we'll kind of want to check in maybe a year after approval on a review of it. So that'd be the 2 additional conditions to what was in the staff report.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and discuss their proposal.
I'm John Schutte, 48390 281st Street in Canton, and we've lived out there for about 7-8 years now, and we've owned the property for about 25 and lived there 7 years for the first year we were there, and then lived a few years away. But we've grown pumpkins out there probably for at least 10 of those years that we've been out there, and we've had actually a festival in the past where I invited my real estate customers out for a weekend where people come out and we do hay rides and then we always had extra pumpkins. And if you drive on Highway 18 in the fall, you've probably seen them for sale on the street corner. That was us. We've just sold them there on the honor system, and actually we're quite successful doing so. And so we thought we'd take it one step further by inviting people to come out on a U-pick. Kind of like the strawberry fields where they come out and do U-picks in areas. We were thinking about doing the same thing with the pumpkin fields during the week. And then maybe on the weekends having refreshments and calling it a festival. It wouldn't be nearly as structured or promoted as other ones in the area. When we sell our pumpkins on Highway 18, it's on the honor system. Our plan is to continue to use the honor system as we go forward. We live there, we're home most of the time, or somebody's home most of the time. That was our plan. But to make it a business, we needed a conditional use permit to do so. So in the meantime, while we were thinking about that, we also we're down by Kansas City, and there's a farmer there that grows a couple acres of sunflowers, and people come out to take pictures. It's usually 2 weekends out of the year where people come and take pictures, and it's just a great family event where people have the opportunity to get outside. We were planning on offering that to people for a price, if for a carload, a few dollars for a carload. If photographers wanted to do family pictures, take them out. It's a beautiful area, and we were just going to share it with the community. We talked to the neighbor first, just the Vandekeefs next door, Mike and Mary, and the first reaction from Mike was, well, we don't care what you do, but later, there has been some concern, and we have visited with Mike and Mary about it. Our goal is not to create an issue for the neighborhood. or for the township. Really, we wanted to create a family-friendly environment. We're gonna grow pumpkins and probably sell them in town and invite our customers out to pick them, whether we get a conditional use permit or not. This just takes it maybe one step further to offer it to people. Our festivals, when we talk festival weekends or whatever, my guess, there might be one with sunflowers and probably two with pumpkins. That'll be it. And concessions, maybe a campfire. We've had people play music in the past. Just a family-friendly event that runs probably from 10 in the morning till 6 at night.
Okay, thank you, John. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do. So this will be open to the public, John?
Yes.
Okay. Outside of the pumpkins and sunflowers, are you gonna be selling any other items
Yeah.
under this?
I'm sorry, I
CUP?
didn't mention that. So we are selling trees as well. And that's something that, potted trees that actually are shipped in. We do have some trees we're gonna sell that we're gonna spade from our farm.
How many trees are you selling?
1,000 of them would be a goal.
I mean, you've bought trees
Yes.
already, and
Yeah.
how many trees have you bought that you're trying to try to
I
sell?
have just over 1,000 of them.
Okay. How many trees fit on a truckload?
About 1,000.
Oh, that's why you get 1,000 then. Okay.
Commissioners, other questions?
Do you want to address the easement that's being referenced from the lawyer?
So.
I know Toby said it's a civil matter. But I mean,
Yeah,
it's
well,
probably
so our property, that's the only access to our property. If there was another alternative, we would use it. Because really, our goal is not to create an issue for them, it started 25 years ago when we bought the place, because we couldn't get title insurance because there was no legal access. And what had happened in the 30s or 20s or something, the township actually put the driveway in, but they forgot to record it. It was supposed to be a township road. So that transferred with the property, and to no fault of the Van de Kiefs or to the sellers, it just was forgotten about. And we needed, at that time, we had an easement put together, and we paid for that easement.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, so when you hold a festival, I'm assuming they're not going into your house for services, porta potties, what will be the plan for those?
Actually, I have bathroom facilities in the building. And so,
Currently,
yes.
in the white building on the
Yeah, the
upper
one that's
right?
not on the map.
Not on the map. Where's that building at then?
On the top right-hand corner.
Is it with the yellow arrow pointing to it?
Yep, with your yellow arrow.
So it is on this map?
Yes.
Oh, I thought there was
But,
another
well,
building.
it's not, you don't see the roof because it wasn't on that picture.
Okay.
It's 3 years old.
And that can accommodate how many people? What is that facility like?
It's 50 by 60, and there's a bathroom in it, just one.
Handicap accessible, all of that kind of fun stuff or not, or?
36-inch doors. I don't have a grab bar in it, but
And that's been there for how long then, sir?
we built it 3 years ago. Bathroom was just the last few months, just got it done.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any additional questions for John?
Not this time.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would like to ask anybody in the audience come in support of the application. Okay. At this time, I'd like to invite anybody up and speak in opposition of the application.
Gentlemen, my name is Mike Nadolski, and I represent Frank and Mary Van Keef. You know Frank is Mike. I call him Frank because I'm Mike Francis, so forgive me for that. I want to put my, I guess, little speech into two buckets on behalf of Frank and Mary. In the first
Excuse me, Mike.
bucket, Sorry.
You
all right.
spoke a little bit, thank you.
Yep. The first bucket is this isn't a that part of the bucket. And, you know, if you look at the narrative for what has been asked to go on here, and you listen to Mr. Schutte, it's basically a commercial endeavor that asks for the public to come onto the property. But yet we're calling this a private recreational facility, and Mr. Brown is right. You don't have a definition of that, but you do have a definition of a public recreational facility. And there's not a public recreational facility in the ag district or the recreational or the rec preservation district. So I think at the end of the day, regardless of how you've treated it in the past, I don't think it damns you to repeat that mistake. I think it just twists the meaning of those words to where they don't mean anything. And in my letter, I referenced the Dakota Alliance soccer thing. To me, that's a private recreational facility. And I don't know how you've treated the apple orchard, but to me, that is a what I would call agricultural tourism. Also in my letter, I think I referenced what transpires up in Minnehaha County. And if you as a planning commission think that's a good idea for Lincoln County, then I think that you ought to make that change. But you have to think about how that impacts other parts of your other districts. And that's really my second bucket, is that this isn't the appropriate place for that. And I'm sure Frank and Mary and Randy are going to get up here, going to tell you there's going to be a lot of concerns about the number of people, because it is open to the public, that are going to be using the roads. I don't think your infrastructure is appropriate. They have concerns about what sort of liability issues that creates. I mean, there's a going cattle concern there. And if anyone were to cross those fences and get hurt by those cattle, yeah, they're considered trespassers, but that doesn't necessarily prevent Frank and Mary or Randy from having to deal with something like that. So those are all things that the Planning Commission consider when you think about what sort of uses go into your districts. Number one, I just don't think that your particular zoning ordinance allows for this type of use under that heading. And, you know, it's your prerogative to define the words as you use them, but I just think that that bends those out of completely. I mean, you can call anything then, you know, whatever business that you're doing, you can call it a private recreational facility. So that's my pitch. Those are the two buckets. This isn't a that, and it's probably a good idea, but in the wrong place. As far as the easement goes, it's not your province here to figure out what that is or that isn't. We just brought it up because I think it's an indication of how times have changed. You know, this was executed approximately 25 years ago. And I think that if Frank and Mary would have thought that by granting that easement, that they were inviting these types of uses, I think that they would have reconsidered that. The easement itself talks about 2 rural residences being out there, and it's for agricultural purposes. And yes, the easement does refer to all reasonable uses, and that's what you guys are going to be called upon to decide here. So I want to go back to that first bucket because I think it's really important. And as Lincoln County develops, it becomes even more important for you guys to anchor your decisions in the text and the language of your zoning ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. All right, I'll invite anybody else that'd like to speak in opposition of the application.
I'm Frank Van Kiefer, and better known as Mike. I have several issues with this. For one thing, I don't think that driveway is appropriate for a lot of traffic. It is very narrow. It is not a 2-car driveway. And the lease states that they have rights to 2 one-family-size homes. And their heirs and assigns, and some business people, but other than that, nobody else. And I think if this is okayed, we're gonna have a lot of problems. Because the Shooties have talked to me about putting in poles at the end of the driveway with a big sign on it, calling this Rocky Ridge Farms. And he even talked about putting gates in it. So if the traffic got too heavy, he could shut it off. Well, then people have no place to turn around. They're at a dead end with a gate in front of them. And there are springs on both sides of the driveway. So people are going to be turning around in there, getting stuck in it, and coming up to my house at 10, 11 o'clock at night and need to be pulled out. And I guess I have the right to say, no, we can't do this. But I don't want to pressure the township or the county in any way, because the county road is going to come right up against the end of the driveway. And what the county can do about it, I don't know, because there is no place to go. So much for that part. And one of my other serious concerns is the way they've got this pictured out. The pumpkin patch is going to be right along across the fence from my lane to the pasture. So if my cows are coming home or going back to the pasture for water, and these kids are playing here in this pumpkin patch or whatever is there, and they climb over my fence, which is a hog-tight fence, and they destroy the fence and get on the wrong side of it, and a cow happens to come along trying to protect her calf, somebody could get hurt. And I don't want to be liable for it. So I guess that's two of my biggest concerns right now, so I'll thank you for that.
Thank you, Mike. All right, is there anybody else that's like to speak in opposition?
I'm Peggy Vandekeef. I'm Randy's wife and Frank and Mary's daughter-in-law. So the first concern I have is the fact that nobody talked to nobody prior to any decisions making. I saw the letter that was issued to the Planning Commission, where it talks about the name has been given, Rocky Ridge Farm. So obviously this has taken some planning. I also saw in the letter that it says ideas for future outings include produce foods, flowers, produce, crafts, and other farm-related products. That's not pumpkins, that's not sunflowers. So I'd like to know where those items are coming from. Are they going to be vendors coming in? So then, in the next paragraph, it talks about signage, as Frank talked about, is to be determined at another time. That's also an issue for us. And then it goes down to the next paragraph where it says nursery license. So as far as I know, that this is something fairly new. I hadn't heard John or Melissa talk about that in the past, not that we talk about everything, but, so I'm thinking that that's fairly new too. So very little traffic is expected from that, it clearly says in there. So when I start with this first letter, the first time anybody received copy of this was when Melissa dropped off a letter to Frank and Mary about her personal opinions. And before I go any farther, I want to say that John and Melissa have been neighbors to us for almost 25 years, and we really did consider them close friends. So this letter that Melissa had wrote to Frank and Mary hurts, because she talks about in this letter how we need to continue to communicate. But there was no communication. We noticed people out surveying the driveway. What was this all about? So we had to do some checking. I mean, it was all little stuff like that. There was no communication. Nobody knew nothing. John and Melissa know that my husband and I farm with Frank and Mary. Those cattle are just as much ours as they are Frank and Mary's. And again, the concern about the lane. The feed floors are along this driveway. We take great pride in our brand. Our cattle, yes, everybody always gets one bad apple or a bad apple here and there, but our cattle are broke to be fed by hand with cakes. They're babies. You call them from the pasture and they come running. And if you don't believe me, I got video to prove it. So where was the communication? They know that these are our cattle as much as they are Frank and Mary's. We rent the ground, we rent the pastures. Frank talked about a cow taking care of her calf. What about a bull? How much damage is a bull gonna do? What about people on the other side? I'm sorry, but city folks don't understand livestock like this. What's gonna happen if people are tormenting, throwing stuff, screaming, hollering across that fence? They're gonna spook our cattle. Then what happens? So, I actually have a very long list here that we've all talked about and gone over and over and over. But my biggest concern, I mean, like I said, there's lots. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked here. So we go back to the initial letter that Melissa dropped off with her letter that came to the commission. That particular weekend, John did get a load of trees. However, the truck had no clue where he was going, so he ended up on Frank and Mary's yard, decided to drive through the yard to go through the pasture and got stuck. Already having issues. The next Sunday, 4 cars, Sunday morning, pulled in Frank and Mary's yard looking to pick up trees. And another one again Monday morning. We don't even have a conditional use permit and it's already started. So there's no signage, there's nothing. These people don't know where they're going. I also question how many trees John got. He says 1,000. I talked to a gentleman and I was told it was 2,500. So 1,500's a big difference between trees. So I don't know who's telling the truth or who isn't. I don't want to assume, I don't want to suggest, but it is something to bring up. It's a big difference. The other thing, like I said, maybe I have my brother-in-law come because he had lots of issues too. The other thing is, I'm also an independent insurance agent, and obviously, I carry my own insurance. I carry a fairly large farm policy, and because of things that we do, and because of the farm and the cattle, we're forced to carry in a personal umbrella. So, out of curiosity, knowing as an agent, my first reaction would be to a client, if they were in my position, was to be, this isn't good. So, rather than take my word for it, I did contact my company that we are insured with, Missouri Valley Mutual out of Burke, great small South Dakota mutual company. And we were told flat out that this isn't, it's a risk they're not willing to take. All the things we've addressed. And what's that gonna do to us? And Frank and Mary haven't even contacted their insurance company, so I can only imagine what State Farm's gonna have to say about this. We're farm, we're ag, 100%, and we're basically going to be next to a commercial business. Nobody likes to see that. It's just not a place for it. I love John and Melissa. I want to see them go far. I want to see them do things, but I know what their property looks like. Does it have to be next to us? I know they have an easement for that driveway, but find another access. Put it on a different piece of your property. Maybe up on the county road 2 miles north. I don't know. But there's so much risk with our cattle, a lot. And I'm not willing to lose our farm that we've worked so hard for, let alone Chris and Corey and Scott willing to lose everything they worked for, like my husband, while they were growing up. Because it only takes one. It only takes one person to sue you and to lose everything. And it's not worth the risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.
Hello, my name is Corey Jorgensen, and I live at 483rd Avenue, and I am Frank and Mary's son-in-law. And I just kind of want to discuss more of the quality of life that this is going to affect or have an effect on us there. Because where this road goes to is a closed road from direction into Iowa. The bridge is closed there. The road leading up to my house is closed, so everything funnels through this one road. And Frank and Mary being my grandparents, being my children's grandparents, my children ride their bicycles down there. They walk down there. My daughter's in cross country, so her friends come out and they use that road to practice running on. With all this increased traffic, I can see this being a concern about the children out there being on the roads, riding their bicycles. And it also said in the letter that Melissa wrote to Frank and Mary that we are not looking to add employees at this time. Well, I am a business owner myself. I own a manufacturing company in Rock Valley, Iowa. And as I grow, I add employees. So that tells me they're looking to grow this business, not at the beginning, but they're looking to grow this. Where you start needing employees, you're going to start growing this business, which makes more traffic, more people out and about and through that area. So that gives me a concern. They call it a recreational. I see it as more as a business event going in, the operations going in. Because if you don't hire employees, you're looking to grow. That's why you only hire employees. And I do a lot of hunting on Frank's land, where I teach my children to hunt there. I've taught my oldest son, I've taught my daughter, I'm teaching my other 2 children. Now I'm concerned with all these people where I don't know where they're at, and I have teaching my children hunting. There could be liability on me if something happens to go wrong there. So I'm just looking at the quality of life, and being on a gravel road, a dirty gravel road, all the increased dust and stuff that gets blown into everybody's yards just makes it worse. So that's all I wanted to bring up, is how it would affect our quality of life there too. Because I moved out in the country 30 years ago to be away from businesses, to be out in the country where we don't have businesses that we have to fight against. And this is what's coming in as a business.
Thank you, Corey. Is there any new information that you'd like to speak on?
Hi, I'm Scott Vandekeef, Frank and Mary's middle kid. I live about a mile and a half mile north of Mom and Dad's. It says in the paperwork that there's gonna be about 90 acres, but only one person's gonna be in charge of this? One person's gonna work 90 acres of a garden? You know, it's not that I'm saying that we don't need employment. Everybody wants a job. You know, everybody wants to have a place to work. So I see it expanding. And once it expands, how far is it going to expand? You know, where's it gonna stop? There's what, 200 and some acres back there? Are we gonna turn that whole thing into a garden? At one time, it was all a sod farm. It just, there's different things that have changed and and I know people are always looking, trying to get ahead, get forward, you know, make something more of something. But it's just, I think it's the wrong place for it. Another issue, we're gonna have traffic. I drive truck, I drive 4 or 5 state area. City people do not understand country driving. I'm sorry. And you get people from Sioux Falls flying up and down these gravel roads, like Corey said about the kids, that kind of thing. We farm up and down them roads, we've lived there for 50 years. We're gonna have people flying by, we're gonna have an accident. It's gonna happen. And so now we're back into liability. Whose problem is it? Is it gonna be ours? It's not our business. We have a deal with the tree sales. Tree sales start in the spring. So we're gonna start tree sales in March? And are they gonna go through to November? How long is this gonna last? So now we're 9 months, 8 months out of the year. We have traffic flying up and down the road for a 4-week festival. There's gonna be the easement for that driveway. It says in there, it's for the 2 houses, for the family up there. It doesn't say nothing about commercial. This is gonna be so commercial, you can't bring who knows how many people into there. There's a deal about, we have on Dad's, the sunflower field and the pumpkin patch. There's a cattle lane that runs along there. I remember as a little kid, I'm 52 years old. I remember as a little kid, Mom and Dad had the Tree boys and everything over, and we put in our half of that fence, brand new. Well, that's 35, 40 years ago. It's never been replaced. The other half that was at once the Helder ground has never been replaced. In 50 years that we've lived there, it's never been replaced. So what's gonna happen when we have cattle getting, and it's gonna happen. We have cattle getting through fences or something. We have kids jumping fences. We have kids playing with livestock they shouldn't be playing with. Who's gonna be liable if something gets into that sunflower field or pumpkin patch? You know, it's just, there's the liability of it, I think, is so far, and I'm sorry to say, but once it gets in there, it ain't getting out. We'll never, you know, like John and Melissa's letter said, we live in a nice neighborhood, you know, we're out the country life. That's why we live there. That's the nice place about living out there. You come down the county road, the bridge is gone. That's been out for 20 years. They don't want to replace that, so we live on a dead-end road. Now we're gonna bring all that traffic down there. That's not why I live there. It's not why we wanted to stay there. It's just, I don't know. Then we have, it's just home, and it's my home. I'd like to keep it that way. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Scott.
Hi, I'm Nicole Sarah. I live at 281st Street on 48th, or 480, I can't even remember. Anyway, I'm coming in front of the commission for my husband and I. We moved out here, we live right on the corner of this dead end, about 8 years ago, and we fell in love with the area because it was close to town, but yet it was the dead end road, so we didn't have the traffic. I have 2 boys. that are 10 and 8, and they enjoy the recreation, riding four-wheelers, walking on the road. We have a dog. Those are just things of my concern. Sorry, I have this written down on my phone, that we wouldn't have anymore. We wouldn't have that safety of just being able to go out and have to worry about the traffic. We wanted to move out in the country for the quiet acreage life, where our boys could have the freedom to have the energy to run off and do whatever. And we enjoy seeing the wildlife. I think our wildlife would be cut down. Just probably a month ago when the deer are coming over, we probably saw 50 deer in our backyard. You don't get that in the city, and I grew up on a farm, so living out in the country is kind of what I've always wanted. And it's secluded, it's private. You don't have people coming knocking on your door wanting to play with your kids all the time. It's just a private place. So, and this year, just recently, I started watching my grandchildren and some other teacher kids. So I kind of opened a daycare in my home. And that also worries me too. What if I have a kid running out? Granted, we don't usually go out by the road, but sometimes I take them for walks. Now, am I really going to have access to, or feel safe to go out for those walks, or even to walk my dog? He more or less walks me, but I try to walk him. The other thing is, if this project goes through, if that's something you guys are considering, with our road and our atmosphere and the safety of our children, our pets, the traffic, the road condition, the garbage that's going to increase, not to mention all the dust that we already have. There's also, which they have all stated, there's only one way in and one way out, and it's through all of us. There is no other access, so we would get all the traffic. There are hundreds of people that come to these festivals on the weekends, but it wouldn't stop there, because you have the nursery from your festivals, and the operation of hours are all the time. The issue would not just be on the weekends, it would be during the week. I talked to Todd Gannon, and he is the owner of the River Tree Farms. He said the roads after their festivals are terrible. And they have 2 ways to get to theirs, and they have more than one way to get out. And Gannons have been doing their business there for 30 years. Our roads are already not a good condition with the little traffic that we have. That I could not imagine having hundreds of people, even if it's only 4 weekends out of the year that those hundreds of people are coming. Those festivals are busy. And Ryan and I are not against your dreams in building something great for the community, but it's just not the right place for it. I hope you understand our feelings and concerns on this, and will take time to consider us as your country neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, is there anyone else that like to speak with new information? Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public comment. And I'll seek a motion from the commission. Okay.
Or not, I don't care, it's up to you.
John, why don't you go over that?
John, would you like to come up with
Yeah, well, there's
a couple questions to ask?
A couple of things I would just like to mention. First of all,
Make sure he gets
Will
to
you
the mic.
get to the microphone, please, John?
First of all, I really want to wave at my neighbors when I go home at night and leave in the morning and whenever I come and go, because And I have a lot of respect for the Vandekeefs. I want that on the record, okay? Liability-wise, I understand that if that's an issue, if I could plant it in a different part of the farm. The whole reason the 90 acres was zoned is because that's the legal description that it's on. I didn't pick that. I didn't pick the labeling either for what it is, the recreational, that's planning and zoning's, I didn't pick that either. The other thing, if the festival itself is the concern, I don't need to do a festival. Then let's just make it a you pick. Come, if you want to come out and pick a pumpkin, go home. I'm okay with that too. And we'll put it in an area that isn't next to their lane, because I understand that. You know what? I don't have a problem with that. And I just thought I'd throw that out there as an option, so.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. I'm sorry.
I'll make it very quick. This shouldn't be happening here, John. This shouldn't happen.
Peggy, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, Peggy, you've had your say.
I know.
Please, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, with that, Commission, I am looking for a motion.
To get the ground rolling here, I will move to approve it as printed, because that's what's been applied. But I'm not gonna say that I'm in favor of it. I'll just get a motion on the floor.
All right, we can make a motion in a second, then we can have our discussion.
Second, Johnson.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioners, let's have a discussion. Who has a concern they'd like to, or statement they'd like to talk about?
I would just say that I did come look at I drove down the lane to see where it would be located at based on the information in the packet for the discussion tonight. And I did put it in my GPS. It was hard for it to find. I think the Vandekeef's concerns about traffic through their yard could be a concern, because that's where the GPS did take me this morning. And that's not pro or con. I wasn't on any side. I was just going to look at what the road was like. So I would say that your concerns are founded on that behalf.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so I'll make a few comments. First of all, and first off, I agree with Mr. Nadolski. I think that the fact that this is designated as a private recreational facility, I think I think the designation's wrong. Unfortunately, we don't have the proper designation in our agricultural district, which is kind of on our planning, on us. And I think that as more property or more businesses or more opportunities let people want this opportunity, I think we need to explore that and come up with the proper designation, because if you take it for what it's worth, and especially with no description of what a private rec facility is, I just take it from the first word as private, and this isn't private. Mr. Schutte himself said, no, this is open to the public. So that's my first concern. I don't think that we have the right designation, and I'm not even so certain that it's zoned properly, and that designation shouldn't be in a commercial zone. Again, as I stated earlier in one of the other items, I don't feel this is consistent with the neighborhood. That I'm very familiar with that area. I grew up in this area. I've spent a lot of time up there, and I know it's one way in, one way out, and that isn't conducive to a whole bunch of traffic, or any more traffic even that's already there. And so that concerns me. Again, it concerns me that we're in a position where we've got neighbors that aren't communicating with each other very well. It's too bad that, that this has to happen here in a public forum and put us as a commission in a spot to somewhat settle your quarrel. But we'll do that. I think that a lot of this could have been avoided if there was better communication. So with that, I guess those are the points that I have, and I appreciate everybody's thing. The last thing I'll say is I am a little concerned that today it's pumpkins and sunflowers, and then I guess we learned that it's trees too. But if we make this conditional use permit for 90 acres, I understand that that's the, that's the plat. There's really no end to it, other than if we were to put a condition in that we review it in a year. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any other,
Long night.
any other discussion?
John, you stated that you've been selling you've been doing some of the stuff for a few years already?
Yes. And we sell them in town here, and then we sell them wholesale. That's where most of them go.
Oh, most of them are going in town here, okay. Yes, I didn't catch that. How many people have been coming out to your place the last few years?
When we did our private parties, the most we ever had was about 200.
John, will you step up, please?
When we did our private parties, the most we ever had was about 200.
That actually come down to your place?
Yeah, yep, in a day. We usually do it from like 1 to 4. And, and the getting there is an issue. And that's one of the reasons why I even talked about putting the posts at the end of the driveway with a sign, because I don't want it to be an issue, And if I had something I could give them directions to, the reason they end up on the Vandekeef's place is because that's what you see when you drive there, and you can't see our place. So it's just hard to know that that's where it's at. And so that was really trying to offer a solution for making it recognizable. So.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, any other discussion, commissioners? No, my thoughts are, I think you guys have, I will say, good, you want to do good things there. I just, myself personally, I just think it's the wrong location. Like 100% families, that's awesome, but, all right, any other discussion, or commissioners? Okay, with none, we'll do roll call, please.
Commissioner Albers,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Scott,
No.
Commissioner Poppins.
No.
Commissioner Jongling.
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Okay. I'll start with this one first, though. So this is an application for Ryan Folsom for a conditional use permit to construct on this commercially zoned property, contractor shop and storage yard. Approximately, this is the site plan that was submitted after the application, so I apologize you don't have this in your packet. You do have a drawing in your packet, but this is a little bit more representative of what it would be. So the proposal is for a 6,000 square foot building that again would be utilized as a contractor shop and storage yard. Again, the property is Zone C commercial. Flip that back. Let's show it. So staff has reviewed the application and has determined, whoops, where did that at there? Yeah. So staff has reviewed the application, has determined that it is in conformance with the standards for approval. Staff does recommend approval, subject to the conditions and findings of the staff report. One of particular interest would be is that maybe, I think it was a couple months ago, staff sent a letter out to all property owners in the Valley Business Park, as well as the developer of the Valley Business Park, and notified them that we would not be issuing any more building permits in the development park until the subdivision improvements have been completed. Primarily, the roads have not been completed to date. They haven't been paved. So I did receive correspondence today, though, from the owner developer that they have entered into a contract with a company that will complete that. And I believe it will be within the next couple weeks. But until then, we do have a condition on here that we won't issue a building permit for this project until such time as the roads are completed. Okay? With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioner, do you have any questions for staff?
So then on that valley, there will be no more permits issued until the road is complete, correct?
Building permits will not. You can issue
Yeah,
this conditional use permit, yes.
Yeah,
but-
yeah.
Yeah, but we won't
Yeah.
issue a building permit until it's completed. And I was assured verbally that I believe that will take place in the next week or two to get those roads completed. So I think timing will work out for this. The conditional use permit, again, the only concern the staff had was the ability to issue a building permit on the property. But it is in conformance with the district. It'll fit well and with surrounding properties, similar uses and things like that. So as stated in the staff report, so.
Okay.
All right, Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Brown? Seeing none, I'll ask the applicant come forward and give your name and give us a briefing of your application.
My name is Ryan Folsom, 1305 Algo Drive, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The application is just for an owner-occupied shop, heated shop. We've been in business for 20 years with my brother. We're an asphalt maintenance business. We extend out into techcrete and some other types of maintenance projects as well, for the area and have for the region, actually. So we are just at a point where we need a nice spot. That spot location obviously works very well if you have to get around all this sprawl that is Sioux Falls and Harrisburg and everything. And that's about it. I think we fit in nicely there. Rutten Structures is going to do the building for us, and hopefully we can get going.
Thank you, Ryan. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
The road, I actually think the road, they've already began some of the gravel. We work closely with ASCO, who is doing the road, asphalt surfacing, so they're in the process of actually beginning that work, and I have the signed contract too from ASCO. So.
Okay, thank you. You're good. All right, at this time, I'd ask anybody to come up and speak in favor of the application. Okay, I'll ask anybody to come and speak in opposition of the application. Seeing none, all right, I'll close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask a motion of the commissioners.
Is that a motion to approve? I'll move to approve as with contingents and findings.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second Scott.
All right, commissioners, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for roll call, please.
Commissioner Albers?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ryan. Mr. Brown?
This is the last item on the agenda for this evening. This is an application to transfer building eligibility. The building eligibility be transferred from the southwest quarter to the west half of the northwest quarter. This is in section 17, Perry Township. So you can see where the arrow is drafted will be coming from here. There will be 2 remaining building eligibilities in the parent parcel. Anticipation, though, that this would move an eligibility up, so it could be accessed off of the county highway. This was the site plan again that was submitted with the application, so identified that this approximately would be where the building eligibility be transferred to. Again, this is a conditional use permit in the A1 agricultural district. The main criteria is that it be contiguous and under the same ownership, so it does meet that criteria for approval. With that, staff does recommend approval of this application, subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report. With that, we'd have to answer any questions that you have for staff.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'd like to invite the applicant forward to talk about their proposal.
My name is Del Junkie. I live at 27554 465th Avenue. And we'd like to move building eligibility from, we have a quarter and an 80 right together. We'd like to move our building eligibility, one of them from our 80 to our quarter. We're looking at building a shop and house there, a shelves, possibly all in one. We have 2 shops on the house, on the place where we're at, which is in that same section. We're going to keep those 2 shops, probably rent out the house, and we'd like to build up on the highway.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Dale?
One of the major concerns was the driveway, and we have been working with Terry Flute, I believe his name, on the driveway. It sounds like we've worked that out too, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm seeing no questions. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite anybody forward to speak in favor. Seeing none, I would like to invite anybody forward to speak against. And seeing none, I'll close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with the findings and conditions.
I'll
Scott?
second that, Poppins.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Commissioners, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for roll call, please.
Commissioner Albers?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Good luck, Dale. Another man shop or shelves. All right, with that, let me check my list. I get excited sometimes. New business.
No new business.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask for a motion for roll call, please.
To adjourn?
To adjourn.
So
Roll
moved.
call, adjourn.
I'll make a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
second.
Okay, motion is second, discussion. All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Albers?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Jongling?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.